Lately, I've seen some pretty discouraging remarks regarding the current status of Katelyn Nicole Davis's ongoing investigation. And in a way, I can agree, it feels defeating to see that those who abused her and offered to assist her in her suicide on a bi-daily basis are still walking free without even being questioned. But at the same time, we, those of us who haven't forgotten Katelyn a single day since meeting her on her live streams after she told us goodbye, mustn't go silent. There is still hope. Of course, she'll always be gone, but the male aggressors in her life should, in my opinion, be living at the very least in widespread scrutiny, as Casey Anthony is. Instead, the person who told her he'd help her by the rope to kill herself while also molesting her, while also calling her a worthless whore, isn't known nationally as the worst stepdad in the world, like how Casey Anthony is known as the worst mom in the world to her mysteriously dead daughter, Caylee. Rather, Katelyn's stepdad is making lots of money, admired by his coworkers, his family and friends, and continuing to shift blame on Katelyn, the very victim of his maliciousness, the voiceless one who can't even defend herself anymore. I've heard many people claim that no one can be charged with anything who is in Katelyn's life, even the predators, because Katelyn's choice to kill herself was her own, and no one else is directly responsible for her choice. Now, by that logic, when Elizabeth Smart, the then 14-year-old girl from Utah who was kidnapped and forced to live in captivity for 9 months with a rapist, she was actually not forced at all. She had ample opportunity to escape. She even admitted that in her newest book, but her reasons for not escaping and choosing to stay in a home and even anonymously walking the public with her kidnapper for 9 months was because of many outside forces, the main one being her kidnapper's threatening words. She said his words had more power over her than any of the real chains he initially locked her in. She also said her impressionable age was a factor. Being only 14 years old made her feel more powerless to the situation. Some critics of hers claim that since she had many chances to escape when in public but chose not to, that perhaps a part of her wanted to live with her kidnapper and be raped for 9 months. Of course, that logic is ridiculous, and it's no different from those claiming that Katelyn's choice to kill herself was her choice only, that she wanted to choke herself with a rope and die at 12 years old, and that there were no outside forces which invisibly forced her to feel there was no escape. Anyone who can critically think knows that just because Katelyn's and Elizabeth's forces were invisible, for instance, no one put Katelyn on the rope and no one pinned Elizabeth down in her kidnapper's home 24 hours a day, none of that means that there weren't invisible forces which directed their emotions. This pencil that I'm holding right now in my hand, you can't see it, but I'm holding a pencil. I'm placing it on the table. I'm not going to touch it, but I'm going to lightly blow toward it. The pencil just moved. Did I physically pick up the pencil and move it? No. The invisible force of my breath moved it. Just because the force was invisible doesn't mean that I had no effect on the pencil. The pencil would not have moved at all if it weren't for my invisible force of breath. Elizabeth would not have stayed with her kidnapper had the invisible restraint of his words not forced her. And Katelyn would still be alive had the invisible push of Anthony's words, among other outside forces, not forced her to make the choice to die. Michelle Carter, a girl who's decades younger than Katelyn's stepdad, was charged with involuntary manslaughter and is now having to serve legal consequences for emotionally assisting someone to suicide. She didn't put the trigger to the victim's head. She wasn't even there when he killed himself. But the invisible force of her words played a giant role. Sure, it won't bring the victim back, but what the consequence she must serve does in this often unjust world is put out an example of what could lie ahead for other bullies if they choose to do the same. Many times, people confuse justice with repair. There is absolutely no way to repair death unless we could perform resurrections, which no one can do. However, justice isn't about fixing the unfixable. It's about applying consequences in hopes of mass future prevention. Think of it this way. Before Europe implemented a legal system for citizens, and we, Colonial America at the time, followed suit, it was much harder to keep barbaric bullying at bay because consequences weren't a guarantee. Bullies must have fear for their actions, just as we fear going 10 or more miles per hour over the speed limit. Such a fear should be so known that all bullies hesitate to possibly ruin their own lives before proceeding to bully. That is what I mean when I speak of justice. And that's how Katelyn Nicole Davis's tragedy can help the world better understand red flags and preventative measures in childhood suicide. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself.
Which I had a stepfather, but he tried to rape me. And he told me I should go hang myself because I was worthless. I was a worthless whore. He couldn't stand my guts, but at the same time, he tried to get in my pants. He was trying to, have sex with me. And I was like, no, you're 40.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you that I get bullied and that people actually tell me that they want me to die, that they hate my guts. Like my stepfather, he said that he hated my guts and he wanted me to go hang myself. And he told me to do it, and he would go buy the rope for me to go hang myself.